The Lord of the Rings is regarded as one of the best fantasy novels ever written. Also one of the best trilogies of films ever put to screen. I share this view, and even would say Middle-earth is my personal favourite fantasy world. Lord of the Rings is a devoted and passionate fan base, which I'm proudly part of. The impact on pop culture the original novels have had, and the films have since, is highly influential. For the purposes of this discussion, I'll be analysing the original trilogy of films and the effectiveness of their adaptation of Tolkien's original work, including The Hobbit and the additional novels. Moving on to compare these films to preceding outings such as Amazon's The Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings video games, and the Hobbit trilogy of films, which I would say is probably my guilty pleasure. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, and in particular the first film, The Fellowship of the Ring, is my favourite film of all time. Released on the 19th of December 2001, the first film, directed by Peter Jackson, was highly anticipated and was an instant success. It is an excellent introduction to the deep, rich world of Middle-earth, and has inspired me to later read the books and provide me with so much enjoyment ever since. I would ask you to please be aware that I do hold the original trilogy so highly, however there are some flaws in their execution which need to be highlighted. These films, I believe, are the pinnacle of fantasy. Nothing since has been able to capture the lightning in the bottle the original trilogy had. I also strongly think that Tolkien himself would not approve and take issue with some of the creative decisions that were made. There are plot holes and they cannot be ignored. Let's first look at The Fellowship of the Ring, my personal favourite, and its story.
You have only one choice. The ring must be destroyed.
In the land of Middle-earth during the Third Age, a world with several races of creatures living together, a young hobbit, Frodo Baggins, has the one ring that belongs to the Dark Lord Sauron. He begins his journey with 8 companions to Mount Doom, the only place where it can be destroyed. Now, I know that is a real bare-bones breakdown of the plot of the film and the trilogy. I'm here to discuss the issues and plot holes there are. The through-line story, the acting is top tier, some of the greatest ever in my opinion, and well worth watching if you have not done already. I hope this video may encourage you to revisit the films and watch them if you have not done so recently. They are really wonderful. I would say to read the books if you want to immerse yourself further into that world. My flaws in Middle-earth, I began to find as I grew older and read more of the books. I was beginning to feel like butter spread across too much bread. There are changes to the novel that hurt the films. There are time jumps, character ages differences, and motivations, omissions of whole characters. Now, I hear you. You're saying that these may be unavoidable because of the process of adapting a novel to film, especially the size of the Lord of the Rings novel. However, this does fundamentally change the story in certain cases and the context, often to the story's detriment. Now, there is a huge plot hole that I think exists in both the films and the original novel, but I will discuss that at the very end of this video, okay?
And what are we waiting for?
The races found in Middle-earth feature heavily in the films and are introduced effectively with care. This leads to effective world building in the films and the feeling that the world being shown to us is full of life. These are hobbits from the Shire, a peaceful people. There is a race of men. There are elves, including woodland elves who live thousands of years. And the enemy, of course, are the orcs and goblins. Followed, of course, by one-off creatures that you usually see, such as eagles, spiders, and all manner of animals. I intend to make a video that explores each race, as I feel they deserve that degree of attention. Of course, we're just talking about the films just now. Let's go through the main characters and highlight any notable changes from the book and issues with the film adaptation. Of course, we're talking about The Fellowship of the Ring. So, firstly, we have Frodo, rarely someone's favourite, but arguably the main character throughout the story of Lord of the Rings. In the film, Frodo is still a relatively young hobbit, while in the books he's already middle-aged. Tolkien wanted to have an asymmetry with Bilbo's age during his adventure during The Hobbit, but of course that was not picked up in the film. The lack of clear passages of time in the film, comparable to the novels, is a creative choice which I feel hurts the story. Frodo's story in the books and the films are followed well, and of course Elijah Wood is the actor and he definitely performs fantastically, especially when it was one of his first roles. Sam, which is of course Frodo's companion, is excellently realised in the films. He's his closest friend, and my only critique of Sam's character for all three films would be the additions to his story. So this is ones that have happened in the film that was not in the books. Now his conflict and fights with Gollum, which are not in the book, and when Frodo sends Sam's away in the Return of the King, because he's not needed, and because of Gollum's manipulation. It's just an addition to the story, and I do believe that Frodo and Sam's relationship was already complex enough in the books. Moving on from them, we have Gandalf. He's probably the character in the story you would describe as the wise man, and he always arrives precisely when he means to. And he's also the quest giver. He's the one who basically tells the audience by telling the Frodo and the characters what is happening. And then we have the flip side of the coin, which is Saruman is the other side of the coin to Gandalf. He's the white wizard, yet he's been turned to the dark side and is working for and with Sauron. The dynamic relationship between the two wizards is great. Basically, Saruman is the head of the Council of the Wizards. There is, of course, the two blue wizards, Gandalf, Radagast the Brown, and then also Saruman. But of course, unknown to Gandalf is the fact that at the point of the Fellowship, Saruman has already been convinced that Sauron is going to win, so he wants to be on the winning side. Along with Frodo, there is the two other hobbits that join Frodo and Sam on the quest to destroy the One Ring with the Fellowship, and they are Merry and Pippin. Now, they unwittingly join the quest and they go through their own character journeys throughout all three films, and I generally enjoy them. They're very much the comedic part of the film. And then, of course, after that, when they're going to Bree, as you can see in this little video here, they meet Aragorn, or Strider, and he is the would-be king character. And he's obviously not achieved his destiny yet, but he does throughout the film. And of course, Return of the King is named after Aragorn, of course, becoming king of Gondor. Now, looking at the rest of the Fellowship, you have Gimli the dwarf, Legolas the elf, and they're all well introduced, but they're not really explored in this film. I've got to be honest, it's not deeply. They do get their times to shine in later films. And the other part of the Fellowship is a character played by Sean Bean called Boromir, and he's a very good character. He's only been in the first movie. He's in a deleted scene in the second one, I believe. And he is the only one in the Fellowship that actually dies, and that's a slight critique I would have, and it isn't the same in the book, but the fact that there isn't much stakes, and I mean that in the point of view that not many of the main characters die. It's just the way it happens. It's in both, so you can't really compare it. It's a thing of, you would compare it as a critique of the whole Lord of the Rings saga, as not many characters die, and Boromir dying is very impactful, but it's being in the very first movie, which it has to be, it still is very strict. It could have been better if they had more suspense and more characters' death. Like certain characters, like why didn't they kill Gimli? Why didn't they kill those sort of characters? They maybe could have. And then of course you have the orcs who are just, you have the orcs, the Uruk-hai, all these sort of threats, and they do scale them up with each film, which I think is very effective. And then you have, because we're only talking about the Fellowship here, we have Gollum. Now Gollum's only ever appeared once in the Fellowship, and it's really just his eyes, and he's just following the Fellowship. He plays a much bigger role later in the show.
Precious!
Now we're going to talk about the major plot point that I do not think I like in the main story, and that's going to be the Eagles. They're used as a plot device to basically save Gandalf in the Fellowship of the Ring when he's on top of Isengard and needs to get back to Rivendell to tell Frodo about, basically get the Fellowship going. And it's a bit of a plot contrivance, because why on earth did the Eagles not just take them to as far as they could to Mordor and then drop them off? And maybe they couldn't go into Mordor when the Fellowship came, but who knows? That's the problem I have with the whole story, and I get it from the point of view of Tolkien. He wants to tell the story of the quest. It has to be the characters. So having a plot device like that, which is the Eagles, that could take them the majority of the way, will defeat the point of the whole plot, and the characters all need to get separated to then go on their quests and fulfill their characters. But it's not explained. And at the very, very end, Return of the King, once the darkness is done and destroyed, the ring is destroyed, the Eagles turn up really quickly to go save Frodo and Sam and take them back to Rivendell, and it's like, and Tolkien himself has been, you can see clips of Tolkien talking about the Eagles, and he's like, he doesn't want you to think about it, because it is a plot hole that both the novel and the movie doesn't really explain. Even if you just said the Eagles were a race that were proud and they wouldn't get involved, but then in The Hobbit they're involved in the Battle of the Five Armies, so they clearly are involved. But that's my main one. Tell me what you think about that plot hole, and I'm willing to concede points and all sorts to it. The music in this trilogy is some of the best ever. It's by Howard Shore, who also does movies such as like Silence of the Lambs and such. Fantastic, honestly. Listen to the soundtrack, it will change your life if you haven't already. And then the special effects, for the Fellowship at least, I think it truly stands the test of time, because CGI hasn't been properly introduced at this point, so a lot of it is practical and using miniatures. Now please let me know your comments and your thoughts, and please subscribe and push the notification bell on, as the next part of this discussion will go deeper into the films, probably the Two Towers, Return of the King, the Hobbit films. Let me know what you think. Thanks for being here. I really do appreciate it, and have a good one.